I'll never forget the day we found the cache. We'd picked that site because it was quiet, but close enough to the main trail that the kids could still wander and explore without vanishing into the wild. The ridge above us was scraped and red with iron dust, but just below, a spring seeped from the rock and spread into a cool little basin where the trees thickened. The map called it Hidden Draw, and it earned the name Felt Tucked Away, as if the forest itself was closing around us, swallowing sound and light in green silence. It was our second evening when things took a turn. My wife Claire was pale and sweating, sitting by the fire with her hand on her chest. Not a heart problem, she's diabetic, and somehow one of her insulin pens had cracked in the cooler. We still had a couple of days left before hiking back to the car. The heat had been brutal all afternoon, and she was dizzy, barely keeping her balance. I told her I'd refill our jugs at the spring while she lay down. The path to the water curved through ferns, soft underfoot with needles and moss. I filled the first jug and was crouched down when something caught my eye. A sliver of metal, half buried behind a slab of stone. At first, I thought it was trash, but when I pulled back some pine needles, I saw the corner of a plastic crate. Then another and another. Someone had built a tidy little shelter from driftwood and camo tarp just out of sight. The air smelled faintly of oil and rubber. I lifted one of the lids and froze. Inside were neatly stacked packages of freeze-dried food, Mountain House, unopened, with expiration dates far in the future. Another bin held medical kits, water filters, batteries, a small solar panel. There was even a hand-cranked radio sealed in a bag. The last container had something stranger: vacuum-packed clothing, knives wrapped in oiled cloth, and a sealed envelope marked personal. I stood there for a long time, just listening to the forest hum. The wind moved through the pines with a sigh that almost sounded like breathing. Every instinct said this wasn't ours to touch. But another part, the father, the husband, knew what was happening back at camp. Claire needed insulin, and we were 2 days out with no signal, no help coming. I carried one of the bins halfway back before stopping. What if someone came looking? The way the crates were arranged, precise, organised. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt maintained, as if whoever had placed them here would return soon. And yet, there were no footprints, no trash, no sign of a campfire or shelter beyond those bins, just that eerie, deliberate silence. When I got back, Claire was worse. The kids, Evan and Lily, were huddled close, scared, but quiet. I told them I'd found something strange, and that I needed her to look at it before we made any choices. She tried to smile, but couldn't. We all went down together through the dusky woods until we reached the little spring and the shadowed tarp beyond. Claire crouched beside the crates and brushed her hand over the labels, her brow furrowing. "Whoever this is," she whispered, "they're either planning for the end of the world or already gone." And that's when the debate began. Do we take what she needs to survive, or leave it untouched and risk the night? The argument stretched deep into the evening, our voices low but tense beneath the rising hum of crickets. The spring murmured close by, and the tarp rustled faintly in the wind, like something breathing just out of sight. I remember the way the kids clung to each other on the rock, eyes wide in the dimming light, not understanding the stakes, but feeling the unease hanging over us. Claire wanted to leave it. Even sick and sweating, she still thought like the nurse she was, by the rules, the principles. "It's someone's," she said. "Maybe a search and rescue cache, or a prepper's hide. If we take from it, we're stealing." "Stealing," I said, gesturing at the dark forest around us. "From who? There's nobody here. And if it is for emergencies, well, this is one." But the truth was, I didn't like it either. The bins were too clean, the contents too deliberate, no dust, no spiderwebs. Someone had been tending to this place, and recently, the ground even showed faint impressions of boots leading off toward the ridge before fading into moss. I opened another container, hoping for some clue. Inside were glass jars of honey, sealed tight, small tins of coffee, bars of soap, and most unnerving of all, a small waterproof notebook. The first few pages were filled with neat handwriting. lists of expiration dates, quantities, and restock notes. The last entry was dated just 2 months ago. Claire saw it and looked up sharply. 2 months? She whispered. They're still alive, somewhere close. The kids glanced into the trees as if expecting someone to step out right then. The air was cooling quickly and the shadows were deep enough to make shapes shift if you stared too long. I'm not leaving you like this, I told her. If they come back, we'll leave a note, we'll explain, we'll make it right later. But she shook her head weakly. What if they don't come back alone? What if they don't want to be found? Her voice cracked then, and I knew what she was really afraid of. Not the morality of it, but the unknown intentions of whoever had built this hidden trove. In the wilderness, motives get murky. Some people hide from the world because they want peace. Others, because they've given up on laws entirely. The night pressed closer. A barred owl called somewhere up the slope, and the sound echoed against the rock in a way that made the forest feel emptier than ever. The kids were shivering now, more from fear than cold. Claire's hand trembled as she checked her blood sugar, dangerously low. That decided it for me. I pulled one of the medical kits closer, scanning labels until I found a small vial of insulin, still cold from an ice pack that hadn't yet melted. My pulse quickened. It was the same brand, same dosage. I couldn't tell if I was relieved or terrified. I'll leave them something, I said. A note, some money, something. But even as I said it, I knew it wouldn't balance the scales. Out here, paper and promises don't weigh much. We carried the vial and a single syringe back to camp. I left the rest untouched, though I swear, as I turned to go, I heard a twig snap somewhere in the trees above the spring. Could have been a deer. Could have been the forest settling. Or maybe someone had been watching us the whole time. That night was long. One of those nights where every rustle of leaves sounds like a whisper and every gust of wind feels like footsteps drawing nearer. We'd built our small fire higher than usual, hoping the light might feel protective, though it only carved deeper shadows around the tents. Claire had taken the injection and was doing better, her breathing steadier, her skin returning to its usual warmth. But I could see the guilt in her eyes, mirrored by my own unease. We'd crossed the line, even if for the right reasons. Evan kept asking if we were in trouble. I told him no, but the words felt hollow. Trouble isn't always a sheriff with a badge. Sometimes it's something you can't name, just a feeling that you've disturbed the wrong kind of quiet. After the kids were asleep, I sat up by the fire, listening. The forest around Hidden Draw had a stillness unlike anywhere else we'd camped. Too complete, too deliberate. No frogs, no crickets, no distant night calls. Just the soft gurgle of the spring and the occasional pop of sap in the fire. I couldn't shake the thought that someone had been maintaining that cache. Someone methodical, solitary, maybe even territorial. Near midnight, I caught movement near the edge of the clearing. A flicker just at the corner of my vision. I stood and slowly reached for the flashlight, sweeping the beam across the trees. Nothing. Then again, a shape slipping between trunks, gone before the light caught it. Could have been a deer, sure, but deer don't move like they're avoiding being seen. I waited, heart pounding, until the fire burned down low. I wanted to wake Claire, but didn't. Instead, I whispered to the dark, "If you're out there, we only took what we needed. We'll put it back." The forest didn't answer, only the steady rush of the spring below. Morning came pale and cold, the kind of light that makes everything seem unreal. Claire was better, though weak, and the kids were cheerful, unaware of how tense we'd been. I went to refill our bottles, half hoping the cache would be gone, just so the mystery could lift, but it was still there. The tarp flapped lazily in the breeze. The bins sat undisturbed, except one. The lid of the crate we'd opened the night before was slightly askew, or enough to be from the wind. And right in the centre of the lid was something that hadn't been there before. A single smooth river stone placed deliberately. No footprints, no new markings, just that small, silent sign. I stared at it for a long time, every instinct screaming that we needed to leave. When I told Claire, she didn't argue. We broke camp in under an hour, faster than we'd ever managed with the kids in tow. But even as we loaded the packs, I caught Evan watching the tree line, squinting as though he too saw movement there. As we started up the ridge trail, the morning mist rose from the valley, curling around the trees like smoke. For a moment, I looked back toward the spring. The tarp was gone. Just vanished. The bins too. Nothing but damp earth and ferns where the cache had been. No sound, no sign. Just the forest, silent and watchful, as if it had swallowed the whole thing and was waiting to see what we'd do next. We didn't talk much as we hiked out that morning. The trail wound through pines and aspen, their white trunks ghostly in the fog. Every so often I'd glance back, half expecting to see someone following us, a shape in the mist, maybe that tarp-coloured shadow again, but the forest stayed still. The silence was the worst part. Even the birds seemed to be holding their breath. By mid-morning, Claire was flagging. Her strength hadn't returned fully, and the trail tilted upward into a steep, rocky incline. Evan carried her pack for a while, and I found myself watching him with a mix of pride and worry. Kids adapt quickly, but fear leaves quiet marks. Lily trudged beside me, clutching her stuffed fox, asking if we'd done something bad. I told her we'd done what we had to. She didn't look convinced. We stopped for lunch beside a bend in the trail where a trickle of water crossed the rocks. I was crouched down, refilling bottles, when I noticed boot prints pressed into the mud beside mine. Fresh ones. The tread was narrow and deep, the kind you'd see on a serious hiker's boots or a soldier's. They led up the slope, the same direction we were heading. I told Claire quietly. Her eyes met mine, wide and tired. "Do you think they know it was us?" she asked. I didn't answer. What could I say? By late afternoon, the air turned warm and still, and thunder began muttering somewhere distant. We pressed on, pushing for higher ground, where the map showed a small overlook campsite. When we reached it, the wind had died entirely. The world felt sealed under glass. I gathered wood quickly, though part of me wondered if we should even light a fire, if that would mark us like a signal. But the kids were exhausted and cold, and fire meant normalcy. Claire helped Lily with her sleeping bag while I got the flames going, the first low crackles snapping through the still air. That's when we heard it, a single metallic clang far down the slope, like something striking a rock. It wasn't thunder, it was sharper, closer. We froze, then nothing. Just the long, hollow echo rolling through the trees. "Could be a bear knocking something over," I whispered, though I didn't believe it. Claire didn't either. She took my hand, her palm cold despite the heat of the fire. "Let's just keep quiet," she said. "They'll pass through." We ate dinner in near silence, watching the forest. The storm broke after dark, sudden and violent. Lightning lit the canyon below in white flashes, and thunder crashed so hard it rattled the tent poles. The rain came sideways, drenching everything that wasn't sealed tight. The kids were asleep somehow, lulled by exhaustion. Claire and I lay awake, listening. Between thunderclaps, I could hear something else. A faint clinking, rhythmic, like metal tapping metal. It came and went with the gusts, sometimes nearer, sometimes far. Then, once, just before dawn, the sound stopped completely, followed by a low whistle, drawn out and rising through the rain. Claire's eyes met mine in the dim light of the tent. Neither of us spoke. We just listened as the storm washed the world clean, praying that whatever was out there had lost our trail. When morning came, the forest was quiet again. Too quiet. The boot prints outside our tent were the only proof the night had been real. We left before the sun fully cleared the ridge. Packs heavier now, though we'd eaten most of our food. There's a certain silence that follows you after a night like that, the kind that sinks into your bones. Every snapped twig made us flinch. The kids trudged along, bleary-eyed, and even the forest seemed reluctant to let us go, mist curling low around our legs as we climbed toward the main trail. By noon, we reached the Ranger Road, an old maintenance track that wound back toward the parking area. The tension started to loosen there, replaced by the dull fatigue that only fear and sleeplessness can bring. But just as we were rounding the last bend, Evan pointed toward a tree near the junction. There, nailed into the trunk at eye level, was a small weathered signboard, one we swore hadn't been there on our way in. A faded arrow pointed toward the direction we'd come from. Beneath it, in careful, blocky handwriting burned into the wood, were 3 words. "Not yours. Remember." I felt my mouth go dry. Claire read it twice, then turned to me. "It wasn't the forest ranger," she said quietly. "Whoever made that cache, they know." We didn't linger. The rest of the hike passed in silence, though I could feel eyes on our backs the whole way. At the trailhead, we loaded the car in record time. Before pulling away, I looked once more into the tree line. Nothing moved. No figure, no glint of metal or tarp. Just the endless green, waving gently as if it had never held a secret. We stopped at a clinic 2 towns over to get Claire checked out. She was fine, better even. The doctor said she was lucky to have gotten the dose when she did. When I asked about replacement insulin, he handed it over without question. The normalcy of it, the fluorescent lights, the quiet hum of machines, felt surreal after the days we'd spent in that wild, whispering place. That night, in a motel room that smelled faintly of bleach and carpet cleaner, I lay awake, listening to the rain against the window. Claire was asleep beside me, and the kids snored softly in their own bed. I should have felt safe. Instead, I kept seeing that smooth river stone on the crate lid, the neat handwriting in the notebook, the sign nailed to the tree. "Not yours. Remember." It's been months now, and life has settled back into its usual rhythm. The forest seems far away, almost like a dream, but sometimes, when I'm alone in the garage sorting through our camping gear, I catch a faint scent of pine and wet earth, and it all rushes back. Part of me wonders if that cache is still there, or if it ever really was. Maybe it's been moved again, hidden somewhere deeper, waiting for whoever it truly belongs to. Or maybe the forest took it back, the way it takes everything eventually. Either way, I've learned something out there among those trees. The wilderness doesn't forget, and sometimes, when it gives you what you need, it expects you to remember the debt